just get comfortable with having AI as a new strategical thinking partner. It's your second brain. It doesn't matter what AI tool you use. It doesn't matter if you use one, if you use 5, if you use 10, you're just along the journey. I think the mindset that would really help people is AI is giving us abundance. It's giving us an abundance of opportunity, an abundance of ethical issues as well, if I'm honest, like not in a good way, but we're going to have to, crawl through that, just like we had to crawl through that with internet security and data protection and cyber and bullying and social media, the same thing, hacking and false information and bullying online. Like there's bad things to all this technology as well as good things, and we're going to have to wave our way through it. But that mindset of abundance of opportunities of AI can honestly amplify your intelligence. I don't actually call it artificial intelligence. I call it amplify intelligence. And with that mindset shift alone, you'll be excited to see what AI can help you do and collaborate with you to do.
Welcome to The Ownership Game with Gary Montalvo. What would it take to get into the driver's seat of your life and leave your mark? The Ownership Game starts now.
We're living in a time of massive change. Technology, specifically AI, is evolving faster than most of us can keep up with. It's reshaping industries, redefining roles, rewriting the rules of how we create, work, and how we communicate. This is all really exciting. And if we're being honest, it's also overwhelming. With all this change, it's easy to feel confused or intimidated, or maybe like you're already behind. Maybe you've been avoiding it altogether, hoping that the dust will just settle. But here's the truth. This isn't going anywhere. There is a state change happening, and waiting on the sidelines is just not a viable strategy at this time. This is one of those moments where we're being called to step up, to lead, to take ownership of how we show up in this new world. Because this future isn't just being shaped by programmers and CEOs. It's being shaped by everyday people like you and me who are willing to engage, to experiment, to be part of the conversation. To explore how this looks day to day in our lives and businesses, I invited Marnie Wills to the show. Marnie is an AI strategist and consultant. She helps everyday people, everyday entrepreneurs, not just understand AI, but how to integrate it into their workflow, into their leadership, and into their creativity. In this conversation, we talk about why everyone needs to become their own chief AI officer, how to stop feeling behind and start experimenting with intention, and how to bring curiosity and self-trust into a rapidly changing tech landscape. If you've ever been curious about AI but just unsure where to start, if you've ever been overwhelmed or maybe even afraid, like you're being left behind, if you want to lead and create in this era, not just react to it, then this episode is for you. Let's get into it. So Marnie, thank you so much for joining us from the UK, all the way across the Atlantic. I appreciate you making the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Gary. I'm excited to get started.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think I'm interested in this conversation. I'm like really excited to talk to you because we've never really explored ownership of technology in the show, and ownership of like the evolution of technology. I think it's you really support entrepreneurs with implementing AI and getting comfortable with AI. And I think, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think this is something that I see people often avoid or just approach with a lot of like, just hesitation and concern and confusion and overwhelm and fear and all the things, right? So I think it's I'm excited to dive in and break this down for people and give them some tools and give them, a new way of looking at this conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into, I know we already discussed potentially a lot to do with mindset, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So yeah, really excited. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get in there, let's give us some background. Like, how did you end up being passionate enough about technology that this is like this became your purpose, right? The business model that you're building.
Yeah. So, well, I'll let you in a little secret. I'm really not techie, and there's nothing techie about me. I have no idea how I've ended up where I am. But what I will say is when I stumbled on my first AI tool, which was the middle of 2021, before ChatGPT, it was called Jasper. And it's a copywriting tool. And thanks to the pandemic, I went knee deep into online business with two of my businesses. So I had to learn really quickly. And I don't know why or how, but learning all things online business, learning about funnels, learning about how to use Zapier, and then stumbling on Jasper AI, it just really worked with my brain. And I'm not afraid to say it. I know I have ADHD traits in my brain, and my brain loves the strategy of how AI works. I didn't know it at the time. So yeah, I'm not techie at all. I was the person that always had a Blackberry, and the only reason I changed from a Blackberry to a smartphone was because they weren't making Blackberries anymore. So I was not an early adopter there at all. I do remember trying my hand when I first started my own business. So become an entrepreneur 11 years ago. I remember trying to buy an app franchise, but honestly, I couldn't deal with the tech to even do that. So yeah, there's nothing techie about me. And I don't believe AI, generative AI, how we use it, the general public, I don't think you need to be techie. You just need to open a window or open an app on your phone and start writing or talking. I don't think you really need technology at all, and to know about technology for how we use generative AI. So I don't really know how I got where I am, Gary.
Well, at some point you decided you're going to share this with others. So like how did that happen?
Well, I think fast forward ChatGPT. So it started with Jasper AI end of 2021. It transformed both of the businesses that I had at the time massively. So much so that I exited one business, and thanks to ChatGPT, it wrote all my contracts. It designed my whole, exit business plan. It was absolutely phenomenal. And then I changed my other business model from franchising to business partnerships. And again, absolutely quadrupled the growth of my business and the direction, to the point where I ended up being the strategy at the top, and I had business partners running my businesses underneath me. And then I just started talking about that in my network, and people were like, how are you doing that? I'm like, with an AI first mindset. Well, they're like, well, what is an AI first mindset? I'm like, well, you just literally say to yourself every time you're about to do something, how can AI do this better, more collaborative with me? How can it do it faster? How can it be more creative? I literally, everything I did in business and in life, I'm not going to lie, I created quite a lot of AI assistants that helped me with food and the gym and finding activities for my children and planning travel. Like I use it in life and business. And I think I just had that early mindset around, oh gosh, can AI help me do this better? I don't know. The word was always better. How can I do this better? Coming from an athlete background, it was always, how do you get that 10% better? So I just started using AI that way. And then, this time last year, so middle of 2024, I started delivering my first workshops. Back in those times, I think it was called the education of AI. And then fast forward 6 months to the end of 2024, it was master AI without overwhelm. And then middle of the year, it was AI literacy. And then now it's around AI first mindset and becoming a chief AI officer. So as the technology kind of develops, what I kind of deliver changes, and because people are at different parts of their AI journey. And then I now, as of 2 weeks ago, have gone down AI agents and vibe coding. And gosh, if anyone had ever asked that, I don't know, that 20-year-old sitting in her lounge room, stuck on her Blackberry, not wanting to change to an iPhone, if you'd ever said to that that young adult, you would be in AI space and you would be teaching others how to use it and strategically coming up with AI workflows for businesses, no one would believe you, not even me.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that's one of the magical things of this time that we find ourselves in. It's that, I mean, I know there's a lot of concern about how AI is changing, and especially around the private sector and the loss of jobs, and there's a lot of concern about where the future of AI is going to go. But what you're also pointing to is like all this new opportunity and possibilities that are being created that would not have been available just a few years ago. I mean, honestly, it's happening so fast, probably like just a few months ago. And I think that I think that part's exciting, that it's creating an opportunity for you that you wouldn't have even seen, that you wouldn't even been able to access, before this. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I think technology has always changed society. It's changed the way we live life. Like, I mean, if we think back to text and writing and books, I mean, that changed so much of the world by being able to write to somebody or to be able to produce a book, And then if we think back to the internet days in the 1990s, that changed our whole operating system as humans, didn't it? It changed the way we access information, the way we communicated with each other, the way we make decisions. The internet did that, as did going to print. And actually, the internet created 2.4 million new jobs. Oh, sorry. Let me just re-clarify that. Sorry. It created 2.4 jobs for every job it destroyed. So for every job the internet destroyed, like, let's say the yellow pages, the salespeople of the yellow pages, for that one job,
Right.
it actually created 2.4 jobs. So that change was massive for us. And then the recent technological revolution we've been through has been the smartphone, and the smartphone almost goes hand in hand with the social media. They together have revolutionized the way us humans behave, not even got anything to do with business. We all behave so differently. We communicate so differently. We make decisions so differently. And, I think one of the most recent stats is most people spend about 5 hours solid on their phone a day. Now, I do see that I easily spend probably almost that in an AI chat at some point throughout a day for sure. I think we will double that as humans within the next 3 to 5 years. I think we're all going to have AI agents working for us in life and business, and we will be communicating with an AI at least 5 hours a day.
Wow. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably spending a few hours talking to chat, already. So I guess it's not that far of a stretch. Because now it's become my it's become my search engine in many ways. It's become my researcher. So when I'm trying to understand something without looking at a bunch of links, I go, hey, give me the synopsis of this, figure this out, why, and as well as really a partner, a creativity partner, a writing partner, a brainstorming partner, even an advisor at many times. Like, one of the trippiest things that I have ever done is I asked chat to act as my mentor and to tell me what does it see as, what are the ways that I'm standing in my way? What are the ways that it sees that I, and the information that it gave me was wild. I was like, first of all, how do you know me this well? how are you, like, how do you know me this well? How are you this wildly accurate? And it was kind of trippy, and but also it was a breakthrough for me because I also realized in that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm underutilizing you. I'm actually just utilizing you as like a brainstorming partner and a copywriter, and like, but I'm like, you actually are really, you can advise strategy, like you can really support in execution and strategy. So there's just a whole world that's opening up, that, and I think you're right. I think at some point, I don't enjoy talking to it yet. I struggle with that. But it doesn't feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I you know what it is? When I ask it a question, I enjoy the fact that I don't have to type it and I ask it a question,
Yeah.
but I still want to read the answer. Like I don't want to sit there and have you talk to me for 5 minutes while you know what I mean? Like I still kind of want to, because I think I skim. I'm like browsing. What do I need? There's a way that I want to download the information or get through it. And when you're speaking, when it speaks to you, you have to kind of sit there and listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I've noticed that if I interrupt it and go back and say, okay, let me just read it, it only writes what it has spoken so far.
Okay.
So then I'm like,
Yeah. So my
go ahead.
favorite model to talk to is actually Claude, because Claude has an inbuilt where you tap the screen to start talking, and then you can tap the screen to interrupt it. Now, I'm going to sound like I completely love myself, but here's a share. Here's some vulnerability here. I love talking to all AI models, but in particular Claude. But I actually love when it just asks me questions. I feel really important. So I'll be like brainstorming with Claude. I'll say the outcome I think they want, and then I'll say something like, and what do you think I've missed? And then it will start talking to me, and I'll tap again. I go, oh, cool, thanks. Actually, could you ask me questions about my domain expertise? Like I just wanted to ask me questions constantly because I just want to feel like I'm contributing and I'm able to add my kind of knowledge and experience and then get questions from it and agree or disagree or whatever. And with Claude, when you press stop, it actually still writes it out. Whereas obviously chat doesn't. But yeah,
Okay.
I do love
go try
chatting,
that.
Gary. Hi, Gary. I do love chatting with an AI. But going.
No, I mean, I love being able to ask it a question and it's wild how it's how personal it is now in its communication. Like, wow, you really sound like a person right now. Like you sound like you've got the intonations and the pauses and the the little whimsy things that we add in language. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to when you said strategy, I think, you are way ahead of many people because you're totally spot on. Strategy and the way we think about AI helping us with strategy is the game changer. And I always build my projects or GPTs or spaces, depends on what platform you use. So for most of my research tasks, I use Perplexity, and there's spaces on there. For many writing, it's Claude, and they've got projects, and then ChatGPT has projects and GPTs. But I always call it like, for example, my LinkedIn strategist or my lead generation strategist or my communication or PR strategist, and just having that extra word, because I know we're alluding to mindset, having that word of strategist kind of changes the way I think about using that particular trained project. And you keep talking a lot about like, how does it know a lot about me? And it's so spot on, and it's because the memory of the AI is so good now, and it's only going to get better, but it is really good. But it also comes down to whenever you're setting up projects, and if you haven't done that already, I highly suggest that is done for any of your audience. It's really easy on any of the paid versions of AI, but you can add knowledge base and you can add custom instructions. So like you said, when you said act like my therapist or my mentor, you you can really give it custom instructions, which I think make the difference. But the key is the knowledge base. And the more you can add to that knowledge base every single week, I'm for all my strategists, I'm adding my knowledge base. And that knowledge base is all the articles I've written, all the posts I've written, all the podcasts I've done. All of that is adding to my domain expertise, my knowledge, my experience, and my perspective. And I keep adding that to all my strategists so that it is learning about what I'm talking about, how I'm getting across my message, how I'm communicating, all of those type of things. And it's constantly keeping updated. And therefore, like every time there's some content produced or I'm creating something new, I know it's from something that I've said or that I've learned. And honestly, on Claude, and I'm sure you can do this on chat now, I would happen to be writing an article about AI literacy in education. And my Claude went into my Google Drive and it found the most recent outlines I'd written for some of the workshops I'd done and created me a brief that said Marnie's AI strategy. Like, I didn't even ask it. I didn't even know it could do that. But as it was helping me create this article about AI literacy, it went into my anything that I'd saved in my Google Docs that even related to the outcome I wanted. Like, that's phenomenal. And that is strategy.
Yeah.
And that is your second brain. And the reason it's able to do that is because I'm constantly keep adding as much as my domain expertise as possible. And I honestly think for us leaders in business, that's really important.
I didn't think about that. That's such a good idea. Like things like my podcast, my posts, like all this content you create, I haven't been feeding it back. I mean, I do, whenever I write something, I always go, okay, here's my final version so that it knows and it remembers and but adding it to the memory bank and it's such a smart thing to do. I'm going to definitely take that on. Okay. I want to go into mindset now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like two. So I personally had never experienced like a resistance or hesitation around AI or even technology in general. But I know many people do. So I want to speak into that and how you support people through that and what's your advice around that. But I also want to, the second part of the question, the mindset part that I do struggle with, and I think this may influence the first part of the question, is now there are so many options.
Mm.
And so now I just like became a ChatGPT expert, but now you just told me that Claude is where it's at. And there, you know what I mean? So there's all of these other, and it's not, and that those are not just the only two, right? There's probably about a dozen now. Not to mention AI is built into a lot of the tools that I already use. Like, we're recording on Riverside right now. Riverside has its own AI tools, which I'm grateful for. So what is starting to feel for me like now is like now I have to keep up with all of this, and that's the part that overwhelms me, and that's where my ADHD starts to go, because you can go down rabbit holes and so speak on that, right? Like let's how do you support that and manage that for yourself, because you're having to do this research. I know you got an ADHD head like me. So how do you navigate this for yourself and help others do it?
Oh gosh, there's so much to unpick there. Okay. So I think to start, yeah, I often get overwhelmed and I often feel like I'm left behind, even though I'm further along than many people. However, what I always come back to is just constant daily use of a tool that I'm enjoying. And I know that sounds really simple, but often we either procrastinate on trying something new because we have fear, because we don't know the unknown, or, we procrastinate because we think it's going to take longer, or we procrastinate because we go, oh, that's just a waste of time. For my brain, if I can't see the outcome already, I'm like, oh, that's a waste of time. So I often get overwhelmed with, I read a lot of AI articles, hear a lot of things, and I have tools thrown at me left, right, and center. But the first thing I always just think is, do I need that now? And do I have time to try that? And if I don't think I need it now, I just keep it in my bank, and whenever I feel like I need a new tool to help me do something, again, my AI first mindset is there an AI that can help me do this better? And then I just keep it in my AI bank of tools. I've got lots of lists that just say AI tools. And then if I'm using an AI tool, I am just trying to find more ways to be efficient with it. From finding ways to update my knowledge base quicker and faster, from using the scheduled tasks, just following one or two people. And I do follow a lot because it's my industry, but I always recommend 3 top kind of YouTube creators or, articles, newsletters. Just choose 3, just follow them religiously. Mm-hmm. This AI is an AI journey. You are not going to be an expert from there, and will probably never be experts, because it's that type of technology that's always going to change and evolve. And if I think about like my iPhone, I learned something new about my iPhone just the other week, and iPhones have been out for 15 years.
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah, like you're always learning something new. There's always something new to come out. Just get comfortable with having AI as a new strategical thinking partner. It's your second brain. It doesn't matter what AI tool you use. It doesn't matter if you use 1, if you use 5, if you use 10. You're just along the journey. I think, and I feel like it's a really wishy-washy answer, so I am really sorry, but I think the mindset that would really help people is AI is giving us abundance. It's giving us an abundance of opportunity, an abundance of ethical issues as well, if I'm honest, like not in a good way, but we're going to have to, crawl through that, just like we had to crawl through that with with internet security and data protection and cyber and bullying and social media, the same thing, hacking and false information and bullying online. Like there's bad things to all this technology as well as good things, and we're gonna have to wave our way through it. But that mindset of abundance of opportunities, of AI can honestly amplify your intelligence. I don't actually call it artificial intelligence, I call it amplify intelligence. And with that mindset shift alone, you'll be excited to see what AI can help you do and collaborate with you to do. So a bit wishy-washy of an answer, Gary, I'm sorry.
No, but it actually, as you were speaking, I kind of got something about my mindset. And I think that, because the advice that I would give is, don't try to wrap your arms around understanding all of it. Pick the tool that you connect with and focus on developing a relationship with that tool, and focus on developing, your process for using that tool. Because part of, I think one of the first parts of really using this technology is there's a certain creativity that you have to have. And because it's really like, it's radical. You've never asked, you're saying, help me name this, right? And then there's like, okay, well, that's the first stop, but how do I ask the question in such a way that gives me the results that I want? And what information do I need to feed it so that it gives me the results that I want? And how do I teach it to speak in my language and use my words? And that is a process. It's a process you're going to have to go through with any AI platform you use. And so I my advice would be to kind of pick one and start those skill sets, because those skill sets were going to help you in whichever platform you go. If I'm going now to Claude, I'm going to be, much more proficient, and I'm going to get on board faster because I've had my experience with ChatGPT for however long I've had it. But the part that I got as I was like sort of working this out in my head was that the part that kind of stresses me out is that I'm somehow in this like doing it right mindset, that it's like, am I using the wrong tool? Is there something better out there? Am I missing, like, am I falling behind? Am I missing out? Am I like, oh, like, though, like when I get into that, because I realize that underneath the thing that overwhelms, it's a lot of thoughts like that, really. Because the truth is, I'm here, I'm zipping along with my chat. Like we're fine, we're good. I'm happy with what I'm getting. Like it's been remarkable, like I don't really have complaints.
Yeah.
But now when I start going like, oh, maybe there's something else. Oh, maybe I'm not using the right one. Oh, maybe, that's kind of where that stuff comes in. And so that's really interesting, and I got that while you were speaking. So
Very interesting. And here's a thought for you. Isn't that what entrepreneurship's about? Aren't us all our entrepreneurs a little bit like that? Like, are we doing it right? Are we missing an opportunity?
Oh yeah.
Could we, like, it's very much that entrepreneurial mindset anyway. And I think actually AI is a massive advantage for entrepreneurs. Not only can we do so many more things than we can before, and I think that's where my passion comes from. I was, like a struggling entrepreneur for, 10, 11 years. And when I say struggling, I don't mean financially, I mean struggling to grow, because I'm one person and you've got to wear so many hats, and then you've got to use all your profits, all your profit margins to outsource and do whatever. As now I don't use hardly any profit margins. I literally have a business partner, 5 different business partners, right? Because I love my AI models, but like, business partners that do all of my strategic work for me without me having to share my profit margins. Like, I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. But I guess from that entrepreneurial mindset, it's so good for us right now, because if we want to become thought leaders with AI within our industry, we can, because we have our expertise. And if we're learning how to strategically use AI ahead of many others, I think one of the stats that I just heard recently was 63% of Americans have tried AI in the last 6 months, but only 13% are regularly using it. Like, we are in a different field of people. And I think that allows us to be thought leadership. That allows us to think. And here's a concept that I've used before, which I think is not going to get old just yet. And here's a question for you, Gary. Are you, as a business coach, are you building the next Uber, or are you still running a taxi company? No right or wrong answer. Ubers are still there.
Yeah.
Taxi companies are still there. Are you the thought leader that's creating a new tool, that's creating a new way to learn with AI, because AI is changing the way we're learning? Or are you amplifying your taxi company with the use of it?
Yeah.
I
mean, that just occurred, like, okay, well, now I have to build Uber. That's a lot of pressure, Marnie. But it is, because I do find myself thinking about things like loading, creating custom GPTs to support my clients with some of the strategies that I'm teaching them, right? Like, they have a question about something, they can't necessarily, if you're a private client, you can text me, but, how do you create support for them, and can I automate some of that and coach, almost create like a coach, right? I think I heard that Tony Robbins is like right now loading his brain into AI so that he can.
Do you know Brendan Burchard?
So I guess it's. Say that again.
Do you know Brendan Burchard?
Yeah.
High Performance Habits. So in his program, he has Brendan AI, and you can speak to Brendan AI anytime. And he's got over 20 years of content, and it's all trained on his content. And I think that's where coaching is going. I think we're learning differently. I think courses are now will be obsolete. People they want to be able to ask questions back. They want more back and forth with an expert. So embedding an IP AI, so an intellectual property AI of your expert, embedding that into your programs is going to be key, because they'll be able to go back and forth. And again, you've got the knowledge base, which you're updating, and you've got the custom instructions, and you can have the artificial intelligence embedded in there. So that's where I think learning is going, and that's where I think coaching industry is going. And your GPTs are amazing, Gary, but what I would recommend is getting in your own AI platform of which you own the chat. So when you send a GPT link to one of your clients, as an example, you can see their chats, you can come back, you can be creating different products and services because you can see the behind the scenes because you own that data. And we are moving to AI agents world. I think we'll all have AI agents within the next 3 years. So the only way to train AI agents the best is with data. And the way to do that is by you and going back and forth with your clients and conversations with AIs, for example. So that's where it should be at. And, I can envisage Gary AI from the ownership game for sure being created sometime soon.
So because it's funny, I was literally thinking about, well, how do you protect your intellectual property if you're feeding it into all these AI agents? Because I would assume that it all gets absorbed into everything else. And you kind of just got into this, you said that you can set up your own AI platform. Is that what so now I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Okay, so my AI platform is called Ayla. AI Leveraging Agents. I branded it as Ayla. It's a white label. The company is called Launch Lemonade. There's many of them. I've just chosen Launch Lemonade. It's called Launch Lemonade. You pay a subscription. I pay $59 a month. In that model, I've branded it, so it's Ayla.io. It's got all the branding. I can access 21 AI models, so it's got API keys all linked in there, so I can do all that. OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, Grok's even in there. I can access 21 basically. And then I have the chats there, and I can have different chat models. So I've got my ChatGPT API in there. I've got Claude. They're the two ones that I mainly use. But then I can have a different chat that's it's called a router. So you can decide you can ask a question, and then you can have the AI decide, what model should respond. And then I have GPTs like you talked about. And those links go into my website or into my members area, and they're trained. So they're like, some of them are agentic, but most of them are just AI assistants. So for one I've got a LinkedIn strategist, which I maybe mentioned before, and I help people create their whole LinkedIn strategy, and then that is in the members area, so they can chat to my LinkedIn strategist that I've trained, knowledge-based custom instructions. They put in their second brain, which is all the information about their business, and then I can see the chats. They can use the information from the chats, and it's owned under my umbrella. That information doesn't get used to train any other model. And I just have a policy and procedure that says when you're using this model, you need to know that I can see your information, and it's locally saved under my platform.
So it's using the other models. I'm trying to understand the marriage between your data and this ecosystem that you're creating, and how it's running on top of these other pre-existing models. I mean, we're probably getting technical and off of script, but I'm sure there's somebody listening to this that would be interested in this as well.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah,
because I'm fascinated right now. So we're going to go where I want to go, listener. Sorry.
I love it. Well, just for Ayla, I only use it for my team and any close clients that I'm working with.
Yeah.
When clients want to create it for themselves, if you wanted to create it for your coaching business, I would encourage you to create your coaching business under Launch Lemonade. You wouldn't use my platform. You would own it yourself. Now, it's very similar to Go High Level, right? So Go High Level is a platform. CRM it started as, but now it's got a whole lot of AI in there. Now you can be a Go high level affiliate, and you can help build people's high level accounts, I guess, and then you could get an affiliate rate, or you can brand it as your own and then sell the high level on top of that. So that's the model for Launch Lemonade, and there's quite a few others out there. In terms of how it works, Launch Lemonade is, I guess, if you think about it like ChatGPT, it would be like ChatGPT or OpenAI, because obviously OpenAI is the playground, and then it has different ChatGPT models in it, right? So OpenAI, you have an API key. If, for example, OpenAI and Perplexity went into partnership, and Perplexity was allowed to come into OpenAI's platform, then in OpenAI would be Perplexity's API key. And then when you opened up your OpenAI account, which is comes up as ChatGPT, you would go to the top and you have ChatGPT 4, 4.1, 03 mini, and then you might have Perplexity. So you could use different models that way. Does that make sense?
So, I mean, I think we probably geeked out and got a little too technical, but let me see if I'm understanding it. I think it's like when you're using something like Lemonade, what do you call it? Lemonade what?
It's called Launch Lemonade.
Lemonade Launch?
Launch Lemonade.
Launch Lemonade. So if you're using something like Launch Lemonade, you're using the processing of one of these models. So the programming that makes it do what it does, but the information that it's using is the information you load into it. So it's a little bit of like, I'm thinking of like a playlist somehow, like you're giving it a playlist. The playlist doesn't go into the programming of the car, but it's separate, but the programming of the car allows you to access the playlist and arrange it and use that information in some way. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but that's kind of how I'm understanding it. So your information could still stay proprietary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not get fed into it.
Yeah, it's called on Launch Lemonade, they actually call it the brain. So you're allowed to upload the brain, which is all the knowledge base, and that brain can only be used in whichever part of the platform you want to use it. So if you create a whole lot of GPTs that you send out to different clients, you can decide what part of the brain that those GPTs can use. So you don't have to give away all of your intellectual property, and your intellectual property stays on only your platform.
It's fascinating. I mean, that right there is like an absolute game changer.
I think that's where we're going in business. I honestly think businesses will have their own AI models. They'll have their own IP AI tools, and they'll have their own AI agents. And I think we're probably there within the next 3 years. And I'm not saying that to overwhelm people, but again, just to open up their minds, entrepreneurial, this is an opportunity to be a thought leader in the industry. Do you want to build the new Uber, or do you want to enhance your taxi company? There's no right or wrong answer, but having a little think about where your industry is going, the jobs that are within your industry, the job descriptions. How did the job descriptions change when the internet come out and when smartphones and social media come out? Now where we're moving to, creating IP AI tools and agents. Where do you want to sit, and do you want to be competing up there, or are you happy to just follow the crowd? Do you want to be the sheep, or do you want to be the leader? Like, there's no right or wrong answer, but I'm guessing most of your entrepreneurs that follow this podcast, being the ownership game, probably want to be at the top.
Yeah. And, even if you don't want to be a leader in AI, which I can understand that, this is not something you can bury your head in the sand about. Like this literally, I love the analogy that you used of the Blackberry to the smartphone. This is kind of that, and even more so in that I think there was the transition period between Blackberry and smartphone was probably slower than what's happening with AI, and the way the technology is evolving is much faster than our smartphones evolved, right? Like
Yeah.
this isn't like a new iPhone every year. This is like a new iPhone every month and a half.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
it's really quick. And so, I don't know that you need to be, devote yourself to being a leader if that's not something that's a self-expression for you, but you definitely need to know the basics, and you need to know how to implement this technology into your business in some way, because I do think that those who ignore this are going to get left behind in some way. It's the
Yeah.
version of it's like the analogy of the mom and pop shop that never does digital marketing or
Yeah.
anything. And, at some
Yeah.
point they do get left behind, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of that. But lucky for you, there are people like Marnie who can help you. So, don't try to do this on your own. Don't try to just suffer through this while you're figuring it out. There are resources out there, and there are, but sometimes going through the resources is even overwhelming. So I do think this is where like having a mentor or a coach that's done this is really, really valuable. So there's my plug to reach out to Marnie, because Marnie, how do you teach it? Do you have courses? Do you coach one-on-one? Like, how do you do your work with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, I have a whole lot of free resources, but like I said to you before, I actually think courses are now, are moving towards obsolete. So I am in the process of creating an AI tutor to talk through AI literacy for business owners. And I'm leaning that towards becoming a chief AI officer for your business. So targeted at entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, you as the leader in the business need to become the chief AI officer. I think that's really, really important. That's the best place to start. But how people work with me, those that listen to the podcast, if they send me a direct message either on Instagram, I'm at Business with AI Strategist, or LinkedIn under myself, Marnie Wills, and tell me the podcast episode and anything we talked about here, Gary. I always give away a 30-minute free strategy call, which we talk about where you are in your AI journey, your industry that you're in, and where you're hoping to go with AI, and then I can give you a path. And if it's a good fit and we want to work together, then we can work one-to-one. And for bigger businesses, I can come in and do some training courses, or one of the big roles at the moment is becoming a bit trendy, probably a bit too trendy for me, but is a fractional chief AI operations officer. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's becoming quite trendy. Stephen Bartlett from the Dyer CEO has one, and then a few other bigger companies have got one. So I do offer that as well. But again, it's for a bit bigger companies.
Sense.
But yeah.
It makes total sense. Well, you've given me a lot to think about, so thank you. I just think it's an interesting, exciting time, and I'm grateful for people like you, honestly, who are doing the work, the heavy lifting of understanding all this stuff and testing it out and hacking it and figuring it out, and kind of just just giving us the bullet point lessons, because I do get overwhelmed trying to keep up and trying to figure it out, and but this is definitely an area where we have to bring our ownership game to. We cannot ignore this. This is a state change in the likes that we have never seen in our lifetimes. And it doesn't have to be scary. It really can be fun and empowering and exciting, and all the things. It's actually a lot of fun. Like
So much
when you
fun.
start playing with it, the things you go, it's really fun.
So much fun, honestly.
To discover things like, oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Or like, the biggest thing for me is my confidence has just gone skyrocketed. Like I come from an athlete background, so I'm quite competitive anyway, and I quite like, I get I get a lot of compliments for success on in sport and in business, but like I just feel like as a human, I can do almost anything. On the weekend here in the UK, Wimbledon tennis was on, and the games take quite a long time. My kids were outside playing, and my oldest daughter loves languages, and she just said something like, "Oh, I want to be able to talk many languages," or something like that. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to create her an AI tool about languages. And I literally did it in about 20, 30 minutes. And she has been raving to all her friends about this app that I created for her. And honestly, I feel like Superwoman. I feel like Mum of the Year. I feel like it just gives me a new light. And I thought, that wasn't work. That was loads of fun. Like, this is amazing. This is absolutely brilliant. And I do think it's an amazing time to be alive. And I think that, stick with somebody who loves doing it, piggyback off what they've learned, and just start enjoying the journey, because that's what we got into entrepreneurship for in the first place, was to try and enjoy the journey. And this, I think, has just amplified it. So go and have fun with AI. It is amazing.
I love that. Love that. Love that. Thank you. Such a great place to end. Marnie, thank you so much for your time. I hope to have you back on the show soon. There's a lot that we don't know about where this technology is headed. But here's what we do know. This thing isn't waiting for anyone to feel ready. AI is already reshaping the landscape, and we're all going to have to figure out how to move with it. Not just as consumers, but as leaders, creators, and contributors. And that doesn't mean you have to become an expert or understand every technical detail, but it does mean you have to show up. You have to stay curious, and you have to take ownership of your learning and your leadership in this conversation. This isn't about hype or fear. It's about agency. You can watch the world change, or you can participate in shaping it. The more intentional we are, the more influence we get to have. So whether you're experimenting with AI tools in your business already, or you're just starting to wrap your head around what's possible with AI, let this episode be a reminder. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to engage. That is our episode for this week. I want to give a huge thank you to Marnie Wills for bringing such clarity and real-world wisdom to a conversation that can so often feel overwhelming. If this episode resonated with you, please click follow or subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, keep experimenting, keep leading with intention, and keep playing the ownership game. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Ownership Game with your host, Gary Montalvo. Make sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform, as well as subscribe so that you never miss an episode.